when I got home on Friday, this had been delivered. This is Elstree 1976, Behind the Mask, Beneath the Helmets, Big People, Small Roads. It's a documentary about actors that had bit parts in the original Star Wars A New Hope movie, and um, yeah, I quite liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So you've got people like Dave Prowse, Pam Rose, Garrick Hagan, and a few others that had um, big roles, and like Dave Prowse had the big role, but he was behind the mask. But and others that had, like, you might have just seen the back of their head. But I mean, they're mostly now, these guys are aged, probably the youngest would be about 55 up to 80. I mean, Dave Prowse is 78, and I mean, they recall their roles in Star Wars, how they felt about being in a movie that at the time they didn't realise was going to become such a phenomenon. And then they talk about what other things they've done with their lives, and you know, they're quite anecdotal in their stories. Like, some of them met John Lennon and stuff like that, and that's important to them. Anthony Forrest, I believe, and he played Fixer, and a lot of, like, Big's got a lot of his scenes cut up. Garrick Hagan. So they look back on with hindsight about the significance of Star Wars, and then other things in their lives, what else they did with their lives. Talking about being jobbing actors or extras in movies. A lot of them seem to be musicians as well. So, that's quite interesting. I mean, they're all either English or Canadian guys, really. And I mean, there's a bit with Jeremy Bulloch as well, and I've got his signature, so I met him. I've met Dave Prowse as well years ago. So it's all quite good stuff, and it comes in this nice sleeve. This is the UK issue. The bonus on the DVD is about 40 minutes of extra interviews, which is all interesting stuff. And yeah, I've watched it twice already, and I probably might watch it again. The extras, so you get director's commentary. I need to listen to that. Extended interviews. They go to Elstree, the studio, in like 2016. So it's quite good stuff. This is the UK version. It's just come out. I think it'll be in shops tomorrow. And yeah, a love letter to Star Wars that you've never seen. I mean, I've seen some reviews of this, and they're a bit like standoffish. They give it about 3 out of 5. I mean, it's not really about like technical aspects of filming Star Wars or anything like that. It's just about the actual actors, their tiny roles in the film, and just what Star Wars has become to them. I mean, for a lot of them, it's not really that important. It's only because they had that part in the movie that they've been able to go to conventions and stuff like that, and do signings and stuff like that. And sometimes they talk about whether how it feels like people don't come to get your autograph, and how you feel when next to you is someone that had a slightly bigger role, and they've got a long queue, and you're just sitting there, and everyone's just looking at you, but they're not wanting your autograph. So but I mean, a few of the guys in the movie, I mean, this documentary, are quite interesting. I think there's a guy called John Chapman. He's into education now, so he's quite a nice guy. And there's a Derek Lyons. He's quite very talkative, definitely. So you've got quite a lot of people, and a lot of them were in other movies as well. Like Dave Prowse was in Clockwork Orange. She's been in loads of movies, like What a Lovely War and stuff like that. So it's all quite. I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, if especially if you're like an older generation Star Wars fan from the 70s, I think you're going to like this, especially if you're British as well. So you're going to like the sort of references. You're going to understand it more if you're from Generation X or older. So yeah, I mean, it's quite good. I mean, they tried to recreate the actual scenes of the movie, but and they do include movie clips from Star Wars to show the actual character in the movie. So they had Paul Blake. I think he's very good actor, so he when he talks, he's very eloquent, uses lots of long words, and whereas others are more, you know. And then there's one guy that got, you know, he was prescribed a lot of tranquilizers, which would be illegal now, and that sort of screwed him up for a while. And then, you know, but now I guess he's doing conventions and stuff like that. I think he's the guy that, you know, when the stormtrooper bangs his head on the door when they rush in on C-3PO and R2-D2. So I think this is a good documentary. I like it. I'll give it 4 out of 5. I definitely enjoyed this, and I'm happy that I got it. It's not the best Star Wars documentary. I'll show you a few other documentaries in a minute that you could also watch that deal with either technical aspects of making the film, collecting Star Wars, or you know, the impact on people's lives. So I think this is quite a good film, and definitely gets a thumbs up from me. If you're a Star Wars fan and, you know, you're interested in that sort of actor side of being in Star Wars, not like a major role, but I mean Dave Prowse had a major role, but he sort of became sort of estranged from Lucasfilm. So, but he's you know, he's a cool dude, and yeah. So this is the UK version, and I don't know if the extras are going to be the same in the UK and US. You can, I'm sure you can download this movie as well. So definitely worth a watch. Okay. So after this, I'm going to show you some other DVDs you can get to do with Star Wars and all that sort of stuff. Okay, here's 2 documentaries by Chris Macht. This one's signed by the director. So The Force Among Us, that was the first movie he made. You can get these in the US. I don't know if they're still available, but you know, they're really cool. So this is the first film we made. This is the director's cut though, so it doesn't come with any extras, but this is about, you know, the impact of Star Wars on his life, and, you know, collecting and all that sort of stuff, mainly about collecting, fandom. So it's a really good film, and he travels around all these different places. He talks to the 501st, talks to the people that were connected with Lucasfilm and stuff like that. So it's a really quite a good documentary. And this one, I think I prefer this one, The Force Within Us. So he goes to different locations. He goes to California where they shot Return of the Jedi. He goes to Death Valley and places like that. So this one's a really good movie. It's called The Force Within Us, and it has lots of great extras. Christian George Macht made this film, so they're both Christian George Macht. So if you can track either of these movies down, I think if you're a true hardcore Star Wars fan, especially like of the Generation X, like Jedi, Empire and Star Wars A New Hope, you would really like these 2 movies. So it's The Force Within Us and The Force Among Us. I mean, I only knew about these because of Dan Geister, who was quite big on YouTube at the time, and he contributed to this movie, I think. So he told me about this in America, and so I got these both from the States. Dan Geister told me about these 2, and I sent it off and got them. And I did an interview with him on Star Wars Live, and it's great fun. So I got to talk to Christian George Macht about this film. Okay, so these are 2 great DVDs. If you can pick them up, I'm sure they're going to be hard to find now because they're limited numbers released, but they might be able to download. Okay, so this is the bonus disc from the Star Wars DVD release. So it's got Empire of Dreams on it. I think most of you would have seen that. It's a really good documentary about Star Wars, about the original 3 movies. So that's a really good DVD. So Empire of Dreams, and it's on the Blu-ray, I'm sure. I've got the Blu-ray, I haven't watched it yet though. Peter Fonda, this is Easy Rider, but this is the double disc version, special edition. So it's got the DVD Easy Rider's Raging Bull, which talks about the uh, story of American Zoetrope, which George Lucas is part of. So you've got stuff about THX 1138 plus George Lucas moving on to Star Wars, and then all the other films that American Zoetrope worked with. So that's quite interesting. Easy Rider's Raging Bull, great documentary. And you can get it in this version, the special edition of Easy Rider, double disc. Okay. And this is such a great documentary. It's the story of Star Wars toys, Plastic Gallery. You get it for about $20 on Amazon. It begins a long time ago, so it talks just about the history of Kenner and how they brought out the original vintage figures. It's a film by Brian Stillman, and this is just such a joy to watch. If you're into vintage Star Wars collecting action figures, you get loads of great extras. You get stuff about the Microlines, Sansweet, Tiny Toys, Know Your Lightsaber. So you get all these great extras. The film's about 70 minutes long. Does a lot about the sort of how Kenner came up with the concept of the 3.75. Talks to the designers, ex-employees of Kenner. So it's a really, really great documentary. So can't recommend this one enough. 5 out of 5 for this. This is just a brilliant documentary, and you know, has lots of interviews with collectors and ex-Kenner employees, and this is just such a joy to watch, especially if you're like me, a vintage head. You had the stuff when you were a kid, so you'll just love this. It's just such a great DVD, and it's just so good. So if you can track this down, do get it. I mean, I'm sure you can download it. And there's a few things on YouTube about Plastic Gallery, like there's a podcast about Plastic Gallery, which I suggest you listen to, because it's an interview with Brian Stillman. Really great DVD, lovely looking disc, region free, so it plays all around the world. There's the actual CD, beautiful. So I really recommend this one. Yeah, great DVD. So Plastic Gallery, the story of Star Wars toys. Really recommend this. Okay, cheers, bye. Great documentary, The People vs. George Lucas, and this is the French version. There's a German version which is 2 disc. I don't know if this is the 2 disc version. You've got all these extras though, but this is a really great documentary. I don't know why it hasn't been released in the UK though. So there's a there isn't a UK version. There's a US, Canadian, German and French version. This is the French version. So region 2, so it'll work in the UK. It'll have French subtitles. But it's a really good movie. It's all about, you know, how George Lucas messed around with the special editions and keeps on fiddling with different issues of Star Wars, like on Blu-ray, adding the no to Darth Vader, and then people sort of saying, you know, giving their pennies worth about what Lucas is doing. And as you can see, it's very like Lucas just being an emperor, fiddling around with his movies, holding a US dollar. So that's quite a good movie. I mean, I really like the German version because it's double disc, so you get tons of extras, but this one's definitely worth tracking down. So probably you can download it as well, but I'd rather have a physical copy. The People vs. George Lucas, this is the French version. There's a German version which is double disc, which is definitely worth tracking down. In the UK we've got to use the European version, the PAL version, otherwise it won't work over here. Really good movie, People vs. George Lucas. Yeah, very good movie. Give this one about 4 out of 5. Okay, so there you go. All the documentaries I've talked about. Right, cheers, bye. German version of the People vs. George Lucas. It's a 2 disc version. So I showed just the French version just before, but this is the German version. 2 discs. Really good set. So you get all these extras on this. 4 hours 15 minutes the extras are. So you get interviews with Dale Pollock. He wrote Skywalking the book. So all these different things. Really good stuff. And it's PAL, so it works in the UK. You can just take off the German subtitles and then it's fine to watch over here. People versus George Lucas, the German version, and there's also a French version if you can't find that. Really nice. So this is a great DVD as well.